pedal people, it's the pedal guy here. Today what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and update the firmware on the Headrush, and then we're going to explore some of the new features. But before we get started, please take a second and click on that subscribe button down there so that you stay up to date with all of our videos. Alright, so the reason that we're going to update the firmware is because of two reasons. One, bug fixes, because there are always little things that need to be corrected in the product, and the InMusic team is pretty quick to address those issues when they're reported. On the other, and this is the most important part of course, is there are new features that are implemented. New workflow features, new amps, new effects. So it's a good thing to do. It's a good thing for you to do to make sure that you stay up to date with all of the firmware features when they've been announced on the Headrush message board or on their website. Just stay tuned to them via Facebook or their website, and you'll stay up to date with everything. And it should be noted that when you buy the Headrush, when you first get the Headrush, there's a really good chance that you don't have the latest and greatest firmware. And in case you want to find out how to see which firmware you're using, simply go to the upper right corner here, the three dots, and go to Global Settings. And then in very teeny tiny letters and numbers, you'll see the firmware down there at the bottom. And in this case, we're using 1.02, and in this case what we're going to be doing is updating to 1.2.1. Alright, so in order to do this, what we need to do is start the firmware updater, which we can see here on the screen, and just click on Update Headrush Pedal Board. And now what it's going to tell us is it's going to tell us that the Headrush pedal board is not detected. Well, that's because we need to put this into firmware update mode. So the way we do that is we go again to the upper right corner and we change it to firmware update. Shut down and update firmware? Sure, why not? Let's go ahead and do that. So now it's going to power off. It's going to restart, and we'll get going here in a second. So don't worry. This is not the most dynamic part of our video here, but this is important nonetheless. Okay, so it is now, if we look on the screen here, it's now preparing the update. Nothing's going on here quite just yet because it's all happening on the computer screen. So stay tuned to that. As you can see, the transferring is happening. While this is happening, let me make note of a couple things. One, make sure that you have the latest USB audio driver if you're on Windows. And two, make sure that the firmware goes through a complete cycle. Whatever you do, don't turn it off midway through, because if that happens, you can pretty much bet that your Headrush is going to turn into a brick, and you're going to need to call up the tech support team and get yourself situated there. Okay, so now it is programming the update. And it actually says there on the screen, as you can see, do not power off or disconnect the Headrush pedal board. It's good advice. Another thing too, while it's doing this, is make sure that before you start doing the update, I probably should have mentioned this before, but I'll make sure to put a little text there at the start of the video. Make sure that you back up all of your rigs, all of your IRs, everything else that you need to do, just to make sure that you're in good shape. Because once you do this, it rewrites the entire firmware on the product itself, and basically you're starting from square one again. Okay, so it is done, and now the Headrush is restarted, and it is updated the firmware. So we should be good to go momentarily. Okay, get a little flash down all the lights, the corresponding lights and buttons on the bottom. We're close. Obviously we're close up at the moment, so you can't see it yet. But down at the bottom here, the lights on the buttons and LEDs and everything lit up a little bit here, just to let you know that it is updating. Okay. All rigs. And there we go. Okay, so we now have all of them. So we now have all of our rigs ready to go here. If we go and click on the three dots and we go to global settings and zoom in there, I'm not going to do it here because it'll look really weird on the screen, but if you just look at it very closely, it'll now say Headrush version 1.2.1. We are now up to date with the latest and greatest firmware, so we're ready to go ahead and start exploring. Okay, we have now updated the firmware, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through I'm going to take you through the new amp and the new effects that are built in. And a couple things I'm going to note as well, and then what we'll do in a future tutorial is we'll circle back and look at some of the workflow. A couple of things real quick, even though this is technically not like an effect, if you will, but if you go to global settings, you now have 3 screens to work with, and in the second screen there is now a global EQ. So this is great if you want to really fine-tune the outputs of your Headrush before it goes off to either an amp, or if it goes off to a mixing console, or if it goes off to front of house. You have complete control over that, and you can do it both ways. So you could send out to your mixing console, you could send it to your amp, then you could also simultaneously send out to front of house if you wanted to. And that's kind of a neat feature. I'm going to start off with the new amp, which is a 59 Tweed Prince, and that's available to us right here. And bring up the old guitar and okay, so it's a good little punchy sounding bluesy amp, if you will. As you can see, there's not really a whole lot in the name of controls here, in the way of controls here, because, well, it's a model of an old 50s amp, and, well, you know, amps back then only had really 2 controls. You had volume and you had tone. So you can really boost it if you want to get a really nice broken up bluesy tube sound. Or you could turn it down and get maybe a cleaner sound, if you will, and if you switch to the neck pickup. Okay, let's turn that back up to 50 though, and there's the amp. Now the cabinet has the features that you've come to expect from a lot of the cabinets you find on the Headrush. You have your mic access. Actually, let me turn back to the bridge pickup. Personally, I like the access off. And we have a breakup. Their out gain and your amp gain as well. All right, so let's go ahead and just bring that breakup down back to 0, and let's bring that amp gain back a bit too, because we don't want to have it overpower us. Now a couple of other things. There is a built-in Gait pedal now for the Headrush, and I think that's a really great feature, and I'll tell you why. One of the things, and this is just my opinion, of course, one thing I was never really crazy about was having a gate at the input side of things, because when I can't see the effect that I need to adjust, the effect that I need to turn off and on, it's kind of a bummer for me. So to have a gate actually on the pedal board itself rather than in the input section is very handy indeed. But that gate's still there, but now instead of using that gate, in fact, let me make sure that I've got I want to keep the threshold all the way down there so that it doesn't get in the way of things. But if we go back, here we go. I will go ahead and click and go to Dynamics EQ, and there's the gate. We have gate suppress, default gate. So turn that amp up. Let's turn the guitar up again. Now, if you're saying, well, I don't hear anything, well, there's a reason for that, because the noise gate is exactly as it sounds. It's supposed to block noise before it goes to your amp. So if you have the threshold up too high, like let's say you have it around 26, 27, somewhere in there, and we play a note, there's absolutely zero sustain there. But if we turn that threshold down, plenty of sustain, and we have additional parameters here that we can use to fine-tune the gate effect. Another effect that's built in here is a more wah. So we can go to expression, and you have your shine wah, your black wah, and your more wah. So we go to default. Right, and that's kind of a cool feature. Now, of course, I've got the pedal board up on a keyboard stand here, so I can't exactly do a dynamic wah pattern that I would do with my foot normally. And if I start doing that with the hand, well, everything will start shaking, and you probably don't want to see that. We don't want any motion sickness now. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and get rid of that. Just simply click and drag, and just go ahead and delete the model. No problem, we're good there. And the reason I'm doing that is because now I'm going to show you the panner. So if we go down to expression, we now have a panner. And I'll go to vibro. Isn't that nice? It's a really nice effect that they've added in here. Another effect that they added in is a air vibrato, and I'll put that up here at the top, and that is found in the modulation. So let's go down, and there's air vibrato, and I'll just go to slow pan. Okay, so it's a pretty cool effect. I'm going to turn it off for the moment because I want to go to the last effect that's here, which is, and you may have seen it when I was calling this one up, which is the octaves. Okay, and you're saying, well, hey, that looks a whole lot like one of those boss effects I keep seeing. So it is pretty much that. You have two octaves. You have octave 1, octave 2. As you can hear, it's a little on the muddy side. So we can clean that up by bringing back the octave 2, maybe to about 10 or 11. Or we can just pull it back altogether. Right, and if you really feel that urge to do some rush licks, this is probably a good effect to work with. And we also have a dry and wet. So you can mess it up at will. So those are the new effects that are in the latest versions of the firmware. Now what I'm going to also do here is just going to move the camera a touch here because I want to show you one workflow feature that's actually pretty neat that I like quite a bit. Now let's say that you wanted to change the name of this OLED display here where it says octaves. Well, that can be done now. It's actually quite simple. All you have to do is go to the 3 dots and then go to hardware assign. Okay, and now we have all of the effects and amps and everything that's built in. So if we want to, we can go in and just simply tap where it says octaves. Right, now it changes the name. So we could go Octo Yo and go ahead and pop that in. And so now, as you can see down here, that's been reflected and it's been updated. So it's a cool little effect to play. I mean, not effect, but it's a cool little workflow feature. So you can make it a little more pleasant to look at the Headrush when you're playing a gig, and you can do that with all the different effects that you may have, or the amps or whatever you may have up in the Headrush here. So what we'll do in future tutorials, we'll go through some of the more in-depth workflow features and some of the other things that add to the eye candy aspect of the product. But for more information on the Headrush and the other pedals that we carry at The Pedal Guy, please visit us at ThePedalGuy.com. Also, don't forget to click on that subscribe button. And if you happen to like this video, press the like button. And of course, don't forget to follow us on Facebook. Have a great day.